Arvoyarns.
On that note, we are ending. No, I'm just kidding.
So like turning to your own like work in economics or whatever. Like how do you situate the stuff that you do in terms of like these larger questions about?
So that question can take me on multiple routes. It can take me on the route of coming to terms with our modern economy and modern problems, and maybe some nitpicking about the assumptions that we make and things like that, or it can in terms of me more personally, what I try and do, and sort of the philosophy that I take in my approach, or it can also mean the actual work that I'm doing. So
maybe start with the philosophy.
Okay, so the philosophy, something that hit me very early, was reading through certain things of Adam Smith. I mean, most people in economics have obviously read The Wealth of Nations. Obviously.
Not I.
But it's a fantastic work, laid all the groundwork for modern economics. That's modern economics as we know it, basically, with maybe a little Keynesian twist here and there, and some other things.
Well, and the marginal revolution of the 1870s.
But, fun fact, Adam Smith, his greatest joy in life, and what he personally thought was his greatest work, was moral philosophy. He
was a social justice warrior.
No, not... Yes, he trolled up Reddit and just really...
Coffee shop Reddit, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. He was just...
He made
shitting all over the chat rooms. Anyway, so his magnum opus, his lifelong work, was a book called Theory of Moral Sentiments, and I think a lot of the stuff in there is really applicable. It's not like economics or anywhere near math or anything, but this is just kind of a collection of it's his view on what morality is, how it exists in our society, and his philosophy on that. And one of the most recognizable quotes is one that also stuck with me, which is stuck with me till a minute ago. So it's man desires not only to be loved, but also to be lovely, and lovely not in the
I think like for me, like if I were to talk to somebody about like how I purpose clothes or fashion, it's like a lot of people would think, they'd say like, oh, you are wearing this to look dope. And I would say, in slight contrast, I look this way because I am dope. Like the loveliness and being loved, it's hand in hand.
Yes, and Adam Smith couldn't have picked a better analogy.
Wrong shoes.
No, but you know what? I think some of the deeper meaning of that is on the objective and the subject nature of good. So yeah, what you said, it's everyone wants recognition, and they want to be high in esteem. I think that the quote continues. It's like after he says not only to be loved but to be lovely, it's or to be the natural object that is considered lovely. So when people think like, oh, Pete, you're so awesome, that's great.
That's not where I am in the dictionary.
No, but it makes you feel good, right? But at the same...
Sometimes. You got to be careful, though. You can't just be like, let me get all this love from people and feast on it.
Well, mine is pure love.
Then you...
So,
yeah.
Yep,
then you get Instagram.
Yeah, but that, like an Instagram person, people try so hard to appear, lovely and worthy of, praise and all this stuff. But there's a difference between that and actually feeling to yourself that you are worthy of that affection. So there's the difference between the subjective I can work my ass off, make millions and millions of dollars, whatever, in order to appear subjectively lovely, successful, right? But at the end of the day, will I be content with my success? Will I feel that, what I did to get there was worth it, and that my legacy is actually bettering humankind?
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because it's like, like to make that distinction between like the inside version of it and the outside version, I think is really good, because, any society, almost like what the society determines is kind of like how those two pieces fit together. Like, so much of one's, the relationship between how much you make and your self-esteem or whatever is
we've conflated
we've conflated it.
Yeah.
And it's like, sometimes I'll have these, I'll have like some dystopian daydream or something like that, where it's just like,
I'm not a billionaire.
Why don't we find aliens or whatever? And it's like, well, some people think
they're
that
hiding.
They're hiding or whatever.
No, it's the Fermi's
Well, maybe
paradox.
it's like any being that differentiates sexually ends up destroying itself, because in the sexual relationship, at least in like the really hardline, Darwinist take on it, it's like, it's all about excess, right? You're like, I can waste these calories, I can burn through gallons and gallons of oil, like I can do all these things, and that proves how like healthy I am above and beyond like whatever else is going on. So what I'm trying to do with my sexual display is show you how many resources I can burn, right? It's like I'm living high on the hog.
Yeah.
And it's like any being with that kind of twisted psychology is going to end up destroying its planet for the sake of impressing a lady.
Yeah.
You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
it's
like,
really funny you say that, because like I had this
But a society, if it adjusts the way inside and
Valentine's
outside
Day gift to
relate to
Laura.
each other.
ayahuasca,
Yeah.
not ayahuasca trip. Man.
No, it's destruction of Earth.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
People are into
Romantic
that. Like,
gesture.
People are into that fantasy. Oh man, that makes me really want to go into a point about a mutual friend of ours the other day. But I had an ayahuasca experience similar to like that on a really personal level, where I was like, okay, like literally, I'm an organism. I've been created by the universe. I am the universe, but I'm not the meta universe as far as P is concerned. But I also like feel that there's some reason why I'm here. Else, I don't like, from my understanding of reality, I wouldn't be here. So I'm like, there's some value in me being here, and so like I get to benefit in some way the universe. And so how I can't really say, but I just do. And then I can also like be along for the ride. Like here I am, because like you're just born. And as far as you remember, you're not like punching, this baby vagina. Oh, here we go. It doesn't go like that. Or maybe it did. But maybe like the more, maybe like the more meta version of you is like, yep, I'm gonna go here, and then you forget because you're connected to this. But anyway, so I was like, I felt quite distraught because I realized I was the golden goose. I was like, fuck. I'm this organism that's been created, and I'm gonna like do what I want, but it's also like I don't like existence is misery, existence is suffering, like in Buddhism, and it's like to a certain extent, it's like, do I have to? Like, does the what's so bad about the Frankenstein's monster gets created, didn't ask to be created, now he's not doing what he was supposed to, so now he gets killed. But Frankenstein's monster is just like, I'm just trying to live, man.
Yeah, dude.
And so how do you like hold this?
Yeah,
Here
like,
you
I
are.
find when I take it to the metaphysical plane like that, I feel like
Let's get metaphysical.
I get like a perspective, but then
Physical economics.
inevitably it leads to no definite action. Because when you work on that level of thinking, there's as much reason to do anything as not to do it, really. You're like, okay, so I was created for a reason, but then it's like, well, maybe I have to figure out the reason, or it all cancels out in the end.
On that note, we'll be ending somewhat early tonight.
Yeah, okay.
No.
Neither a reason to do nor not to. Sitting like the philosopher's donkey.
Well, are we see, that's something that always bothers me, because these days we're still kind of stuck on like a postmodernist track and nihilist.
Yeah.
And
Nihilist?
I mean, that's mixed in there, right?
It's mixed. Yeah.
I think nihilism is nihilism.
Nihilism.
Yeah, is inherently mixed into postmodernism. And I think at the same time that none of that is, I mean, it's a nice thing to think about. Everyone should, have some introspection with themselves anyway. But I think there's no room in that for positive action. Really.
Yeah, well, I mean, the way I think about it is like, you could sum up my spiritual belief as a kind of pseudo-Judaism or something, but it's
Judo?
like Judaism.
Oh, okay.
Jewish. Just that,
Okay.
one's always waiting for the Messiah, and the Messiah could walk through the door at any moment, and everything could change, which is to say,
From the Messiah's house,
there's one current in the Bible, which is like Ecclesiastes, which is like, there's nothing new under the sun, we've been doing this forever, and whatever.
I love that one.
Yeah.
And for me,
that's a good.
it's great, but I'm fundamentally opposed to it. I feel like the true belief that I have is that there is something new under the sun. But that you can never conclude. Like, if ever you're about to conclude some metaphysical question, it's like, something tomorrow you could fall in love. You could hear
things are still going.
You could hear something that changes everything. I mean, you just don't know. Like, someone living in Newton's time trying to understand quantum mechanics. Human life is such that we never know what are the limitations of our own thinking and our categories. And I'm always ready to change my mind. And to me, but now the question is, would you consider that? So what is postmodernism, though? Is postmodernism the belief in the sense that nothing's new under the sun, and so we're just going to sort of situate ourselves among
Well, actually,
images?
No, I think it's more...
Or is postmodernism, the search for the new, precisely, as against a modernist?
I think it's both. Like, I feel like it's that causality exists. Yes, you would never do anything except what you would do, but you also have free will, but in the sense that you only have free will in the moment. Like, we don't know. I have to have free will, exert it right here, and now that moment has passed. It becomes
free will.
Causality.
Yeah. But you know what? The whole "there's nothing new under the sun" thing, I don't think that's anti-positive. I think you can still...
Yeah, I don't think it's intrinsically anti-positive either.
I think...
why would it be?
A negative. That's a better word for anti-positive, right?
It's neither.
But here's the thing. Even if there's nothing new under the sun, I think that, every molecule, every proton, everything exists, and it's the way... And, maybe if we were smart enough, we could calculate the forward trajectory. You would disagree. But anyway... But here's the thing: it's the way.
Ironically, as the quantum physicist, you're like, no, there's no way.
It's the way. So here's a way to think of that without making it negative, and allow it to be positive. Is that even though nothing's new under the sun, everything exists, nothing new has been thought of before. There's nothing to stop you from taking the old things and arranging two old things together to make one new thing.
Yeah, well, but when you arrange things together.
Doesn't make a new thing?
Exactly, yeah. Essentially, it's a question of reductionism. When you combine elements together, do you get something genuine?
It must literally...
And maybe you can. Maybe you totally can. I'm not saying you can't.
It must literally be different because, if you're here and I'm there, there is a connection, we're both the universe, we're in this plane, we're both energy, blah, 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 atoms. But also, there is some type of differential, or else how could I distinguish in between it?
That's interesting.
That's what I want to know. Or is it there must be some type of difference between you and me, or how else could I differentiate the space in between us and say, that's Matt's hair, that's his coat, that's Matt, that's the chair, that's Pete? Or is it actually purely inside of us? Wow. It's purely programmed on perception itself.
Well, you got to start from there's something pushing back.
There's definitely something
you get pushed back, and then
feels
you're
like
the
universe pushes back.
To violently rip this back to economics as violently as I can,
bring it.
Is one major misconception that people have with economics is that our society is zero sum, right?
Yeah.
If you make money, Pete, you must be taking money away from me, right, Pete?
That's how I see
it. So if you're super rich, that means I'm super poor. But that's it.
You said it.
That's completely wrong. And
I don't think that's true.
Economics, game theory.
That's the victim mentality.
Yes.
Ultimately.
So have you guys heard of the prisoner's dilemma?
Yes, the Stanford experiment.
Yeah. So That's a good example of like how it can go either way, and how systems, can. Wait, that's not a good zero-sum example, but anyway, it just shows how human cooperation can, achieve something greater through working together.
I have to footnote this just because this is something I'm interested in, which is, when you generalize game theory to quantum game theory, where
as one does,
where people are allowed not just to make sort of like signal a move in the game, but they can each have like some entangled particles.
Yes,
and like that's part of the game too.
Why do they have to make everything a quantum game? I just saw quantum chess.
It's great.
It's terrible.
So you can break the deadlock in the prisoner's dilemma. Like if you share entangled particles, you can cooperate with assurance. Greater than chance.
Yes. Yeah.
And so, I think that like
interesting.
People need to do some hard thinking about the early evolution of organisms.
Yes.
And the degree to which
I was just thinking
cooperation is
economics has got you covered. There's neuroeconomics. There's behavioral economics. There's brain. There's big brain, big giant.
There's Big Bang economics, my favorite.
So behavioral economics, right?
Champion of the people. Big Bang economics.
Sorry, I was just thinking of a show. So behavioral economics, it's really interesting because it's not undermining the standard economic model, but it's actually accentuating it. And one of the problems with the standard economic model, it takes all these things as given, one of them being rationality. Humans are rational, and we have access to perfect information, which in my experience is false, right? So economics, economics, the rationality part, of course, in my case, but...
Yeah, and it's funny though, because you could argue, that by building an economic system based around the assumption of rationality, we're whipping people into shape, making them more rational.
Yeah, kind of like
Yeah, but you have an infinity inside of the shape. Yeah. That's like that's like the elephant in the room always, right? That's the quantum thing. It's like, okay, well, it's all an infinity here, it's an infinity there. The cardinality of it, it's a shape.
Well,
but it's not intrinsically rational.
You sit down to make an economic model, like you have to somehow take that infinity and be like, all right, well, I'll turn that into this ranked list of preferences.
Right.
Use some Gale-Shapley algorithm or something.
Observing a particle changes the particle. And
predicting a system and then acting on the system based on that prediction.
That's something
you don't even need quantum for that.
Yeah, that's something in finance they have to deal with all the time, because let's say someone cracks how the stock market works, right? Like they're going to be really rich very quickly until everyone else gets the thing, and then we're back to square one.
There's a blog that I read that you might like called Slate Star Codex. As this like psychiatrist, he also writes on like evolution and economics and all sorts of stuff. But over the past couple of years, there have been like various replication crises in different academic fields, from like psychology elsewhere.
Not that bad in economics, so take that.
Well, psychology specifically bad. Though finance. He was talking about there's some rumbling there, and they were giving like the different like ways that people write the finance papers weasel out of it, whether it's intentional or not. Where like one of the classic excuses is like, oh, you can't replicate the finance paper. Well, that makes sense because since the publication of the paper, everyone took that into account in their models, and now I can't make a profit on it.
Yeah,
so like, it was true then. Don't worry.
Hey, don't have me. If you want to replicate, go back in time.
Bitch.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, we gotta go back, Marty.
Morty. It's 2019. It's Morty now.
And economics is inherently hard to really test. I mean, especially with macroeconomics. Like, what are you going to do? Are you going to just change the interest rate in half of the country?
Just go to a dictator. You can get a lot of stuff done.
Well, if the economists had their way, too. No.
Well, do you think there's lots of criticizing this idea, but I always thought it was cool when people were like, you could think of America as like a big experiment where like each state like has different like rules and regulations with different interest rates, and we can see we can do experiments.
Like a special
but how do you control for those things? How do you control for those things, and
Well,
how do you
Montana does
relativize?
one thing,
No. But it's not like if Montana was the only state that did the other thing, that would be great. But
Well,
everything, it's multi-causal.
Yeah.
That's what happened with Hong Kong.
Arvoyarns.